Do we need to use my? Okay, thank you. Then we will call to order our committee of the whole meeting. Would somebody like to, sorry, we have an agenda in front of us. Would somebody like to move approval of our agenda?
Second.
Great. And no late items?
No chair
Okay.
minions.
Wonderful. And we will recognize that we are gathering today on the unceded territories of the Sashot and Hupachesit First Nations. We've moved and seconded the agenda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Is Councillor Washington not coming today? Okay. We have minutes from the meeting held at 4 p.m. on March 21st, 2022. Would somebody like to move adoption?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Carried. And no delegations, no unfinished business, so staff reports. Item number 1, Manager of Planning, Official Community Plan Update. Welcome, Marianne.
Good afternoon, members of committee. We have before you a report. This is in response to the June 27th council meeting where council tabled the recommendation to move forward with community feedback in regards to the Frank collaborative engagement and communication strategy. And today what we have laid out in the report in a chronological format is what we had heard at the council discussion in regards to touchstones 4 and 7, and have provided some revisions in the report for the committee's consideration today. And we've also outlined a engagement strategy as far as for dated July 12th, 2022, of which is in response to what we heard at the council meeting of June 27th, and that's attached to your agenda. We have also outlined the progress moving forward and are seeking committee's input on that graph, and when council is engaged, and looking forward to a discussion on that as well. And we provided some details on the workshop that was held on June 2nd as far as community representations. And we're seeking today for the committee to recommend to council to move forward with seeking community feedback on the draft vision and touchstones, and to initiate the Frank's Planning Collaborative Engagement and Community Strategy Plan dated July 12th. So we are here today to hear the committee's comments and open to discussion and questions. Thank you.
Lovely. Any questions to start? Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question regarding First Nations. I saw some participation, but not everyone was there. Am I correct on that assumption?
In regards to First Nations, we're actually in the community engagement strategy that Frank Planning Collaborative, sorry, a lot of words. They outline that and recognize that we are also meeting with First Nations in regards to government, so there's a separate process as well, but First Nations is invited as a government to participate in the workshops.
Okay. I'll probably have other questions as we go along, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Paulson.
I just noticed further down in the report that there's a timeline graph. On what page am I on here? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Page 15. And I gather there's a revised timeline where there's some TBDs there. And I just wondering if there was an update maybe on kind of how that timeline is fleshing out. And I think one of the big things, and I'm not going to speak for everybody here, but I think myself and probably the rest of council are ready to roll up their sleeves and get a little more involved in this as well. This process was going along, and I kind of felt like I was in the dark a little bit because I didn't quite know what was going on, and yeah, so I'm just wondering if there's kind of an update. Looks like we're maybe slipping behind schedule a little.
Yes, I'm happy to respond to that. So the reason why we have TBD in there is until this goes forward to council and council support staff and moving forward with the community engagement, we haven't put those times in yet. So we would definitely come back with an updated schedule once this has been considered by council. But what we would be suggesting that we move forward with is, first of all, to update the public, because we've had the survey number 1, we've had the June 2nd workshop, and we'd like to be able to update them on Let's Connect and provide that information. And if council is, if the committee's supportive of the draft vision and the revised touchstones, then we would want to put that out into the Let's Connect, and then we would identify some tactics that would be things like pop-up events, you know, reaching out to different stakeholder or community representatives and stakeholders, so that we can then have more one-on-one conversations and get some information and feedback. And then we would have a larger event where, of course, council would be engaged in that. We would also report back to committee of the whole and council with various updates. And if there were specific things that the committee wanted to share with us in regards to the tactics that we'd be rolling out, a lot of them are basically pop-ups and surveys and going to, say, the markets, any sports events or other events. So we have a series of those tactics that are outlined in Frank's collaborative, and we would enhance upon that once we can move forward with the community engagement piece. I see this as a living document and evolving with us reporting back and then keeping council informed.
Councillor Solda.
Sorry, I have some more questions that when I went through it. Anyways, I noticed in one part there's talk about growth and infrastructure management, but in the further up there's nothing. There's about new infrastructure and how do we move forward with that and keep it going, right? But there's nothing really talking a lot about the existing infrastructure and management of that, or is that part of the growth and infrastructure management? Because I'm really big on, like, our old stuff is having issues, right? So.
Right, so as part of the touchstones, where we talk about the grow with tomorrow in mind, that would be part of, and the responsible management is a part about when we move forward with growth management scenarios, that we have these touchstones and we're addressing those. So part of managing growth is, first of all, understanding our population future over the 20-year span. Then it's actually looking at our existing infrastructure. And then as we move forward, what do we need to support the growth in our community, and developing those, what I would call master plans. So working with engineering, for example. And that goes back to us understanding what existing, what has to be updated, and then what new growth will generate for new projects. So the OCP is quite complicated with those pieces, and that will all be coming forward to the committee and council as we move forward with those growth strategies as part of the OCP.
Okay. Yeah, I'm totally not in that picture with the old stuff.
Well, I guess I might want to just add is that this is kind of laying out the guiding principles. I think, Councillor Soldo, maybe what you might be thinking is some of the more detailed policy work that will come later in the process. And that's when you start providing, you know, those kinds of guiding policies. And that's kind of the thick, or the meat part of the OCP work that is work to come. So it's not that we're not going to go into that, it's just we're not at that stage yet. And we work in conjunction with engineering and planning to start to frame those policies. So I guess we're not at the level that I think you're looking to get, but we will.
Okay, I guess I'm in the weeds. And one more thing. So looking at your stats, it was about 606, thank you, by the way, 667 people were part of this through the survey and everything. Is that the total amount of people that were involved?
So with survey number 1, yes, there was 667 roughly respondents for survey number 1. And then there was some individual focus groups where there was about 12 or so participants. And then in the workshop that we did in June 2nd, we reached out to 80 organizations, of which we had 26 that represented 36 organizations. So that's kind of the touchstones with the community.
So where I'm going with that is, it's just disappointing, is that not more people came out? I mean, we have how much of a population in our community, and I look at, you know, the percentages when it's broken down that's written. Is that a normal, you know, process for, is that a good amount of people for this kind of a report, or what's your opinion?
Yeah, so it was a survey, and considering the length of that survey, I think that was a really good result.
Okay.
And moving forward, part of what we'll be doing with the engagement and community strategy is laying out measurements that we want in there to hit for what we think is appropriate feedback from the community. So we make sure we're getting a good representation, and we have those targets identified as we move forward. So we can say, hey, we were hoping to get 900 survey responses. We only got 850. Let's go back and do round 2 and see if we can up it and then get some more. So those are the kind of things we'd bring back, say to the committee, to say, this is what we found. Do you want us to go back for another round of survey, or are you good with what we have? This is what our recommendation is. So yes, but we need to put those measurements in there.
And one last thing, I said that before, but one more thing. Do you think COVID, people, was the tail end of COVID and all that might have kept some people away?
I would say for the survey, that because it was online, I don't think COVID impacted that. In fact, it probably helped getting those results, would be my assumption on that one. When it came to the workshop, we probably had some people that did not want to attend because of just coming out of COVID. But we had a fair representation across all the sectors, so we felt it was a robust conversation.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Along the same lines, I believe 90% of the responses were from people 33 years of age and older. And when you think about, you know, the next 20 years, those people under 33 are going to be, you know, living the results of this. Have you given any thought to how you can draw more people out that are much younger in age?
Yes, that's a great point, and we totally have identified that as a gap in the analysis, which we in our tactics moving forward, we're reaching out as to how we can get the youth involved. And I've been talking with various people that are helping us with suggestions on how we can outreach to the youth, so very much so.
Thank you. That was actually going to be my comment. I spoke at a leadership and tourism class, two different classes, so one each semester the last year, and they really got engaged in like what we were doing within the city and how they could get involved. And so I did talk with them about OCP and let them know that I would kind of pass along survey links as there was an opportunity, but it seems like there might be an opportunity to present to one of those classes potentially. So I could put you in touch with the specific teacher, because it's nice to open up engagement to everyone, and we could do that with a survey, but I think that's a class of people that are really engaged in this type of topic anyways, and learning a lot about local government and just what our responsibilities are. So I can pass that along. And then I just wanted to say that I really like the changes that have been made. I think the one that we had discussion on last time was number 7, diverse, balanced economy. So updated to continue to support existing economic drivers while also adapting our economy to support newly emerging sectors and ensure there continues to be opportunities for youth and young families to stay in the community. I think that is really well written and worded, and I think moves very much in the direction that our strategic plan is trying to move in. So nice to see a lot of commonality there. And then just lastly, around Councillor Solda's comments, I think that number 3 really, so number 3, this is on page 17 of the agenda. Number 3, responsible infrastructure management, says utilize what we already have and ensure new infrastructure is resilient to a changing climate. I almost wonder if it would be worth adding something in there like maintain and utilize what we have or what we already have. But I think the message is the same regardless. It's just if we want to be really clear that a part of utilizing that old infrastructure is making sure we're properly maintaining it, we could add comment in there. But I think Scott's point and Marianne is more that that comes in the policy moving forward, and these are really just the guiding principles. So overall, I think this captures really well the direction we want to go. Other comments? Councillor Haggard?
I'm going back to number 7. You used the term existing economic drivers, and I believe it was Councillor Carbillo wanted us to ensure that we supported our existing resource-based industry. Is there a reason why you used economic drivers instead of resource-based industries?
The reason why we did that is just to be more all-encompassing of all the existing economic drivers. That was the reason.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Poon, any comments? Okay. Councillor Paulson?
Your stat on the June 2nd meeting, will there be another opportunity for some of these organizations that for one reason or other either didn't attend or chose not to attend? Will there be another opportunity for them? Be nice just to get a little more input from some of the groups that weren't there, and maybe it would give us a little more balanced response as well, I think. There was one in here that I had spotted that I was surprised they weren't there. Community Futures kind of surprised me that they weren't there, but anyway, just
They all live out of town.
yeah, they all live out of town. Yeah, we'll have to do it at breakfast.
So
They
just
don't come to the office either.
so in regards to that, in the Frank Planning Collaborative, Appendix 1 lists the 80 organizations that we did, and Community Futures is not on there. So, and we will evolve this with any, suggestions as well. And yes, we will circle back. This is our core group, and then if we have more names and organizations, then we'll just add to it, because it's evolving as we go through the process. And we will be circling back with various tactics on that as well.
And would the Chamber of Commerce been kind of considered the representative for the different retail merchant areas, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Councillor Corbeil?
If there is going to be another opportunity, I would add there are no labor groups at all on that list. There's typically you would see the Port Alberni District Labor Council invited to something like this, potentially the Steelworkers, QP, Unifor. So if they do have an opportunity to have some input, if you could identify a few of the labor groups, I think that would be very useful.
Yep, I'm happy to put that on the list.
Tim?
Madam Mayor, previous to some staff's tenure with the city, the Labor Council was the umbrella organization that we would go to when we want to take input from organized labor rather than multiple actual unions. That would be the one to do. Well, that has been our practice in the past.
Okay. Councillor Haggard?
Just one more quick question, and again, this might come later on, Scott, as you mentioned earlier, but in touchstone number 3, I think we should also have something about our existing infrastructure, ensuring that it's resilient to climate change. As I know, we just put in newer windows at City Hall, and we've changed the lights over at the multiplex, so things like that to help with the environment and climate change. So is there a way that we can use that in there?
Yeah, so if you go to, I'm just going to go to where I want to go. Yeah, so in number 3, ensure new infrastructure is resilient to changing climate. We could add in adaptation and mitigation, which would cover that. Does that work? Okay.
Yep. Councillor Solda?
Just a quick thing. The only, they're gonna wish I had no voice again. Anyways, I agree about all these people that were invited and didn't come. I am assuming they didn't send a regret letter or anything like this. And I look at the time, maybe the time frame, a lot of these organizations were just starting to get back and after the COVID, and some of them have finished because they ran out of volunteers and they're probably no longer together. But it sure would be nice to be able to have them just send out a letter or ask them to fill out a survey with their organizations, because a lot of them too are having AGMs coming up. They can take it to their membership, and even if we mail it out or send it to them, you know, or their member, whoever we send out the invite to, their organizations, they might have changed hands, right? And somebody else is getting the emails and stuff like this, and communication lacks sometimes in some of the organizations. So I would love to see more of these organizations respond at some other point in time.
So just on that note, we did get regrets from ones that couldn't attend. We did get updates too, because we did have some incorrect contacts, and they kindly gave us the right contacts, so we did do that. And some actually said they were going to show and they didn't show. And then others didn't want to come because of COVID, and then some we just didn't hear from. So that was kind of the range of responses.
I love that we're doing a variety of pop-ups, because I think that there's people who are engaged and will come to an event like this, but I think that we will reach a lot of different people at pop-ups at different locations. So, and I think actually I was quite impressed to see the percentage of people 33 to 45 or whatever that age range was that did participate, because I thought that actually was quite high compared to what we maybe have had in the past, or what engagement we typically get from that age range. So overall, I think we're always disappointed by, the percentage of population that does come out to answer surveys and things like that. But it just is difficult to reach everyone. So overall, I think these are pretty good numbers, and it looks like we really covered the groups that we wanted to, with the exception that I think we can probably make some more specific connections with the high school. But other than that, I think this is a good turnout. Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motion? First one.
All right. So, Madam Mayor, I move that members of the committee recommend to council that council accept the revisions of touchstone number 4 and 7 and the timeline graph as presented in the staff report dated July 14th, 2022, and approve staff proceedings with seeking community feedback on the draft official plan, vision, and touchstones as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Any final comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And B, I move that members of the committee recommend to council that council direct staff to implement the engagement and communication strategy for the official community plan vision and guiding principles prepared by Frank Planning Collaborative and dated July 12th, 2022.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Just one last comment, and it has to do with your School District 70. Another group I think that would be worthwhile approaching would be North Island College, NIC. I'm not sure if they were on that list or not, but they always have something to say.
And I just was wondering if we couldn't maybe have a motion about adding an adaptation and mitigation to number 3.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Paulson. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Marianne. And we will move on to zoning bylaw amendments.
So we thought we'd give you a little update on where we're at with our zoning bylaw review and kind of where we're moving forward, coming to the fall 2022. So first of all, what we're proposing is a housekeeping bylaw amendment. And that would, because the zoning bylaw was last updated in 2014, And we really want to do a comprehensive update after the OCP is adopted. But in the meantime, if we do a housekeeping bylaw, it would help us to update the current bylaw and align it with current legislation, provide clarity for users and consistency and implementation, and also be very helpful in regards to updating our webpage and making it a consolidated version easy to use. So what does that look like? It would mean general formatting for ease of reading and interpretation and administration. And then it's also about revisions to general regulations. For example, right now, there's density bonusing that's embedded in the zoning. Best practices is to pull that out and put it into your general regulations. The other thing is secondary suites, talking about secondary suites as a general provision. Right now, there's restrictions in the zoning that limits the ability to actually put secondary suites in, and we'd like it to be a little more accessible so that we can create secondary suites given our housing situation. And the other thing we'd like to discuss and bring forward for consideration is accessory dwelling units, so we can look at laneway housing, carriage housing, and provide definitions and engage on that, so we can move that forward. And then we want to review our definitions. There's some inconsistencies there that we'd like to. We talked about some uses, but we don't necessarily define them, and then we need some better clarification in our definitions to define it for implementation. So what would the next steps look like? We would prepare the draft housekeeping bylaw. We bring it back to the committee of the whole for discussion, and then with that discussion, then we would move forward to council and seek support to initiate community engagement, because we will have to engage with the community on the nature and contents of this bylaw. And that's where we are at today. So we're just providing information and welcome any feedback that you might have as we progress through this work plan.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
So just for clarification, is that all our bylaws pretty well we're going to housekeep, or just the one you just presented?
Just the zoning bylaw.
Just the zoning. Are we going to eventually do some updates? Because I was going through our bylaws last week, and I'm going, oh my God, they're really old. So are we going to be updating those eventually, bylaws?
I'll defer to.
I'm sorry. I know this other one is really important, and we've had this discussion since we've been elected.
Yeah.
But there's others, so, okay, fine, I'll leave that on park it, but I will be all over it again.
We're going to start with this one. However, it's important to remember that we do update bylaws on an ongoing basis. But I think what you're talking about is more of a review,
Yes.
which obviously has value as well. Scott, did you want to comment on that?
Well, we just knew that some of these things that are in here, there's some good general ones, but there's some strategic priorities that council and the city have been wanting to get to. So instead of waiting, we wanted to try and move some of these steps, especially the accessory dwelling units, laneway house, carriage houses. That's been something we've been wanting to do for a long time. So this is us informing you that we haven't forgotten, and we're trying to move this forward sooner than later.
Step one.
Great, thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Will this touch on houses that are moved, i.e. the Nickel Brothers type houses? We went through this some time ago, and the bylaws didn't jive with that. Is that part of this, do you think?
So I'm not familiar with that, so Scott might have to.
This might have been before Scott, though.
Yeah, I think it was, and so that's not something that we had anticipated during this round on it, and I haven't seen, we haven't had very many inquiries about that, certainly over the last several months, and I think there was some, I'm trying to remember, it was some desire to work with the regional district, so they were kind of hand in hand, and I don't think either organization has moved very far with that. That would be something that might be, a little further down the road, but it's not one of the priorities that we're working on for this housekeeping one at this stage.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, I just wanted to say I think these are great priority areas to work on during this housekeeping bylaw change. Very excited to hear we're looking at updating the secondary suite and laneway houses. Is that something that I'm sure all of us hear about on an ongoing basis? Secondary suites, we know that they exist in our community, and we know that very few of them are able to be legal or are, maybe inspected as well. And so I think having an opportunity to have a program in place that is, really usable would be valuable, whether we get to that, right away here, or we just make some amendments to make it work better at this point. I think moving in that direction is great. And we get asked on a regular basis about laneway houses because it has just become a great, option to support the housing challenges that we do have in the community. So I think this is fantastic. And I don't think I have any other questions. I'm not seeing any. Oh, Councillor Paulson.
This is a broader conversation that I had with somebody today that's trying to open a new business, but as we go through these, and in particular out of consideration for our clients, it's a perfect opportunity to do a how-to guide. If you want to do a zoning bylaw amendment, here's a program, and here's the steps to go through, and I think each department, we could maybe do this as time goes along over the next 5 to 10 years. Create manuals, so that if I want to open a new business in Port Alberni and I'm building a new building, how do I go about it? Who do I talk to? It's a perfect opportunity anyway.
Yep, and that's something I know within our department that we're trying to improve and provide that information for customers so that we can make sure that we can get them the accurate information and help them along through the process.
The person I talked to today she wasn't angry. They have just gone through a whole lot of confusion and being pulled back and forth, and they're getting there.
Okay.
Thank you. So no specific direction needed from us today. This is just for information.
Correct. And then I'll bring you back a draft.
Okay, wonderful. Looking forward to the draft.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no more comments, we have no correspondence, no new business, no public input, I assume. No public input. Would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Top 10.